Okay, hello and welcome. My name is Amy Royer. I am the project coordinator of the Rural Health Initiative. The mission of RHI is to engage partners to share ideas and expertise and to support communities in improving health while stimulating a higher level of wellness across the state. Thank you all for joining us today for our webinar, Nutrition for Seniors and Senior Meal Programs. It's presented by Minky Medora. She is a registered dietitian and serves as a nutritional consultant for the Montana Office of Aging. She provides training and nutrition information to the state office as well as area of agencies on aging, which implement the senior nutrition programs, including congregate meals and Meals on Wheels. Minky serves as the resource person for all nutrition-related issues for seniors. So thank you again for joining us today. I will now roll the ball over to Minky and we can begin the presentation.
Well, the senior meal programs, as you all know, are a very good source of nutrition for the people that come to your programs. And one thing, no matter what else your clients are dealing with every day, they have to eat to keep their nutrition and their strength up. Seniors have, as you know, a lot of different problems. Not all of them. Many of them are in very good health. But what they eat and how much they eat on a regular basis is so critical to their health. And since you folks are the ones who are doing this very important job of providing nutrition for the seniors, it really makes a difference if you get to know your clients. Now, I have gone to different sites in the state doing training, and I find that by and large, the people who work in the senior nutrition programs know their seniors very well. But there are some, who have a higher risk of being hungry and not getting enough good nutrition. There are seniors who take care of grandchildren and don't have enough money for their own food, or some who are living alone or don't always make it to the senior site. And for many of them, the main meal is lunch for them. And so the more you know your folks and your clients, the better it is for you to be able to meet their needs. From talking to people, I've found that you folks usually, they're the ones who like to talk to you and share their needs and concerns with you. So next, I want to go over the Dietary Guidelines for Seniors. Now, these are revised every year, every 5 years actually, and these were last revised in 2015 for all Americans, including seniors. And it's very important to know that for seniors, the main thing that they are emphasizing is cutting down the number of calories in their meals, especially calories from fat, and increasing the quality of nutrition like protein, vitamins and minerals, and whole grains. So here are the main recommendations for seniors. What they need in their meals is lean meat and protein, not too much red meat. They need more of chicken or turkey, fish, eggs, beans, or other non-meat proteins. I know that a lot of seniors like things like sausage, bacon, and lunch meat and other processed meats, but those are usually very high in sodium and fat. So while it's a treat to have it once in a while, it would be a good idea not to have it too often on the menus you plan. The other item that's very important is the grains, and by that I mean bread and starch, with special emphasis on whole grains. Whole grains and cereals. Things like brown rice, quinoa, bulgur, oatmeal, and whole wheat flour. And I'll be talking about each of these a little more in detail as I go along. Fruits and vegetables. For those of you who have sent me your menus in the past to look at, you'll notice that I'm always emphasizing more fruits and vegetables. And as we go through the meal plan, you will see why you need to add more of fruits and vegetables. But I do want to emphasize that as much as you can include dark-colored vegetables and fruits, it's better for their nutrition. These are things that are orange, purple, red, or green. And the reason is they're better sources of antioxidants. And antioxidants, and there are many of them that I won't go into detail, are so important for either preventing or slowing down the onset of chronic diseases that seniors have, like heart disease, cancer, diabetes, and I've only named a few. Even for things like mobility function, antioxidants make a great difference because they slow down the aging process. So not only are fruits and vegetables important for providing vitamins, minerals, and fiber, but they're a great source of antioxidants. So what are some of the other recommendations for seniors? In terms of planning the menu, and again, we'll go into a little bit more as we go along, the new recommendations say that it is better to use vegetable fats as much as possible. So vegetable oils, almost any kind of vegetable oils. At this point, they're not clear on what their position is on palm oil or coconut oil, but all other vegetable oils like safflower, corn oil, canola oil, peanut oil, almond oil, all of those are good. Olive oil is a very good one to have and can be used not just for cooking but also for baking. And you do want to get used to reading the labels, which I'm sure you all do, to make sure there are no trans fats in the kind of fats that you choose for cooking or including in the menu. Less animal fat, in fact, as little as possible. Whenever possible, use less use of whole milk and less use of high-fat meats. As far as the sugars and sweeteners are concerned, you want to use foods that have natural sugars in them, like cooked fruit, or cooked starches, both of which provide natural sugar. There is a lot of concern now for added sugar, and I'm talking about things that probably seniors don't always eat as much, but anything with added sugar, and it's amazing how much sugar is added in different foods that we don't think about, like salads, dressings, ketchup, soups, etc. So as much as possible, avoid things that have a lot of added sugar. And then, of course, the old one, which is salt or sodium. Please limit the amount of that in your cooking. And that's kind of hard to do because salt is also in everything unless you cook everything from scratch. But even bread that you buy will have salt in it, so it's hard to keep it down very well. So at this time, I'm going to stop and ask a couple of questions to you that you will see on your screen. Okay, so thanks for your responses. Now, the kind of folks that you have in your programs aren't all necessarily
Minky, do you see the poll results on your screen?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, wonderful.
Shall I continue?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so I'm sorry, folks who are listening. This is kind of new to me. I'm still learning. But as you must know very well, you get seniors of all different backgrounds and ages in your programs. You also have seniors who have a lot of chronic health problems, and then you have some who are very healthy. But you probably have, at least in your home-delivered meals, seniors that are over 80 and much longer, much older, I would say. By and large, national studies have shown that seniors in the senior nutrition programs are mostly single women living alone or in rural areas. A lot of them don't have a lot of money to buy food. Now, that may not be the case with the ones you have in your program, but that seems to be the general way that seniors are in other states in the country. So it's important to try and see what you can do to meet the needs of all the different seniors in your program. And as you well know, the population of seniors in this state is growing by leaps and bounds considering the size of our state and the population in our state. So let's look at some of the problems that seniors usually have. Some of these are changes that come with age, but not always that's not always the case. But these are areas that are of concern to seniors that you need to be aware of. There are those that feel tired easily and run out of energy. There are those with numerous health problems. There are many seniors who get frequent colds or other infections because their immunity is low. You might notice with some of them that their skin is, everybody's skin gets thinner with age, but for seniors you can see areas of redness that is not necessarily an infection, but their skin is low and breaking down. A lot of seniors are suffering from anemia, not enough hemoglobin in their blood, and that also adds to feeling tired and weak. There are those that have too much weight gain or too much weight loss. Either one is cause for concern, especially if it's sudden weight loss. That's something you want to be concerned about. There are seniors who are not able to eat all kinds of foods. Again, more in the homebound seniors, and they'll tell you, I can't eat this, I can't eat that because it upsets me. Unfortunately, when that happens, there are many foods that they avoid eating that may be good for them. And then there are seniors that are not as sturdy on their feet and have mobility problems, so they are at greater risk for falls and fractures. Some of the other things that they deal with are inability to shop and cook. Keeping in mind that even though you provide one very good hot meal to them 5 days a week, or maybe some of you do less than 5 days, they still have to eat other times of the day, but they may not be able to. They may not be able to get to the store or cook. Dental problems are a real concern with seniors because if they have missing teeth or dentures that don't fit, then they avoid eating certain foods that are good for them. They have a reduced sense of taste and smell, so food may not taste very good. This is especially a problem with seniors who are dealing with therapies like cancer because the medications have that impact. There are many seniors, and this is almost all seniors, that don't realize when they're thirsty, so they don't drink enough liquid, and then they get dehydrated, which is a serious problem. As I mentioned, medications have an effect on the mouth or cause dry mouth or reduce appetite, so they don't feel like eating. And one thing, I don't know how often you find out about it, but if a senior goes to the hospital and then comes back again, they may very well be not as healthy in terms of their nutrition as they were earlier. This is not to imply that the care in the hospital was not good. It's not that. It's just that while they're in the hospital, they may not be eating very well. They may not be moving around. So when they come out, they need more time to recover because they've lost a lot of strength. Now, the benefits of the senior nutrition programs, I just can't say enough about it or how important what you're doing is for their health. The meal programs, and we'll talk about the meal plan, it's developed in such a way that if you follow it, you are meeting the nutritional needs of seniors. And if you plan your menus that meet the recommended amounts of food from each of the food groups and in the right amounts, the variety and the amounts, you will provide seniors with very important nutrition, and especially certain nutrients that they need at this stage in their lives. So if you follow the meal plan, you don't have to worry, am I giving them all the good nutrition that they need? Because you are by following the meal plan. And because of that, you are doing something very critical for them, which is the menu planning and the food that you provide. If you do those two based on the recommendations, you are doing a huge service to the seniors in your program. One thing that's being recognized now more and more in the country and including by the medical community, that good food is very good medicine, and if seniors ate well, they wouldn't have to take so much medication or treatment. I just inserted this recipe here for chicken stew. I just thought it's an example of a simple recipe that provides protein, vitamin, minerals, and good calories. Don't try to copy it down if you're interested, because you can get a copy of all my slides, including this later on. But I just threw it in as an example of combining protein and vegetables, keeping it lean, less fat, and more nutrition, and it tastes good. I know because I've tried it. So let's talk about your important role in planning menus and the food groups. As I said, if you follow this plan, you are making sure that your seniors are getting the best nutrition that they need. And I will go through each of these a little bit more in detail, but I wanted to start by showing you the whole chart. Some of you may have seen this before. I find that sometimes there's a little confusion in interpreting it, so I want to quickly point out two things. First, the food groups on the left are the grains and breads, fruits and vegetables, dairy, protein food, oils and fats. And then there's an other category if you haven't used up all the items in the food group. That's usually someplace where you can use those for doing a dessert or adding an extra item. So the center column are the number of servings in one meal, keeping in mind that servings are as important as the choice of food that you give. So in the grain and bread group, there are 2 servings for one meal, and one of them has to be whole grain. Now, I have found that when I talk about whole grains, it causes some confusion. When I say whole grain, for example, if I say whole grain rolls or biscuits, I don't mean that you should only use whole grain flour. I mean you should add whole grain to the flour and not have the whole thing white flour, or take away some of the refined flour and add whole grain to it. And nowadays you can get so many whole grain products on the market too, including whole grain pastas, rolls, tacos, muffins. All of those things are good, and those would be considered whole grain. The fruit and vegetable group, as you see, are 3 servings per meal, as long as you follow what the serving means. The milk or dairy is 1 8-ounce serving of milk, but it doesn't have to be milk. And finally, the protein group are 3 servings of meat or other kind of protein. And then when I keep talking about servings, when you look at the third column, that talks about the size of 1 serving, just 1. So if you're looking at, for example, the servings of fruits and vegetables, it says 3 servings. That means 3 times any of those items. They don't have to all be the same item. You can have a half a cup of cooked vegetables, about a half a cup or more of things like cut up apples or pears, and then 1 cup of leafy vegetable for a salad. But you need all 3 in one meal. I hope that makes sense. Same thing with the protein group. 1 serving of protein is 1 ounce of meat. Now, you wouldn't give 1 ounce of meat at a meal, or fish or poultry, but you should give 3 ounces, and that's one portion of what they need. So I hope this isn't confusing because I'm talking about servings and portions, and then I'm trying to explain what one serving means. So let's look at the first group, which is the grains and bread. This is a well, actually all of these groups are very important. But this one is very important because it provides most of the calories in one meal, and that's what it should do. Not only are bread and grains a good source of calories, but they're a good source of vitamins, minerals, fiber, and they also have some protein. If we didn't have the bread and grain group, a person would be hungry after a meal because it helps to round out a meal. And as I said, it says at least one of these servings should be whole grain, but that can be an item that has some whole grain in it, not just entirely made of whole wheat flour. The next group is the vegetable group, and as you can see, there are many ways you can interpret that. Now, this includes also things like dried beans, peas, and lentils. Half cup of cooked would be 1 vegetable serving, or a half cup of cut vegetables would be 1 vegetable serving, or if you're using leafy greens like spinach or lettuce, you need 2 cups to make 1 serving. You can also use vegetable juice, 3/4 of a cup, but please make sure it's pure vegetable juice. Frozen and canned vegetables are fine, but you want to make sure the canned vegetables are low in salt or very little salt. And as you can see, some suggestions, vegetables are such an important part of soups, stews, casseroles, and other combination dishes. Now, both vegetables and fruits are an excellent source of vitamins, minerals, and fiber. They have some protein, but not a lot. The other good thing about it is that while vitamins and minerals are very important, vegetables and fruits are usually low in calories. This is why it's a good idea to serve a vegetable, especially if you want to provide a menu where people are not overeating, to start with a vegetable with a very light dressing so that it helps to put some food in the stomach and then the person is not as hungry for the rest of the meal. I think we all do that in order to cut down how much we're eating. And the other thing, and I'll move to the fruit group because it has the same benefits as the vegetable group. The other thing that's so good about fruits and vegetables is that they are very good sources of antioxidants. And I mentioned that earlier when I was talking about the dietary recommendations. These are things that you can't really add in a meal. They come naturally in food, and fruits and vegetables are such a good source of antioxidants. With your fruit sources, you want to make sure you're using fresh, frozen, or canned fruit. It's hard to find too many canned fruits that are packed in light syrup or without sugar. They're usually packed in juice, which is okay, but in that case, you need to drain the juice because the juice can be used as another fruit serving, and just serve the canned fruit without the juice. All right, so I'm moving on to the milk and dairy group. Now, this is a very, very important group. It's one of the 2 most important food groups that provide protein in the diet. So things in the milk and dairy group, like, of course, milk, yogurt, cottage cheese, tofu, cheeses, even ice cream, are an excellent source of protein and other important nutrients like calcium, potassium, and vitamin D. As you know, calcium is very critical for older people as they age because of the impact it has on bone health. And as we get older, as people get older, if they don't have enough calcium in their diet, then the bone starts to lose a lot of the bone mass, and there's increased risk of falls and fractures. I do want to clarify that for the milk group, if you choose to serve milk, as much as possible use the low-fat or skim milk. Buttermilk is fine, although I don't know how often you all use it to serve. You can now even get low-fat chocolate milk. Just make sure that the milk is fortified, which is the case with any milk you buy from the store. And I would strongly recommend that your milk comes from a approved provider, and that it is fortified with vitamin A and D and calcium. So that's really important. The other thing is powdered milk is a terrific source of adding more nutrition without adding a lot of fat to any meal, especially if you're dealing with seniors in the home delivered meal that don't eat very well. So the requirement for milk is 1 8-ounce cup of milk or one of these servings that you see in front of you on the screen. The other food group that is as critical for providing protein, as I said, milk is a very good source of protein, and the other one is the protein including meat. You know, protein in the body are the building blocks of the body. They are the items that build muscle, bone, blood, and all the important enzymes and tissues in the body. So protein is very, very critical for people in their diet, and it should be part of their daily food intake. I don't know if you have a lot of people who have mobility problems, but one of the things that happens with seniors who are not eating enough protein is that their muscle mass goes down. The amount of muscle in their body starts to go down. And unfortunately, in the place of the protein and the muscle they have lost, they acquire and store fat tissue, which is not healthy for them. When it becomes very serious, it leads to a problem called sarcopenia. And there have been a lot of national studies now on sarcopenia, which is muscle loss. And the problem is that once an older person loses muscle, it's very hard to get it back. I realize that you can only control what they have in your one meal, unless some of you provide more than one meal. That I don't know. But having the protein amount is very, very critical for them. But again, I want to emphasize staying away from proteins that are high in fat and salt, like the processed meats. So as you can see, one serving of protein is 3 ounces of meat, or alternates listed below. So one egg would be 1 serving of protein. If you wanted to serve egg in a menu, then you can have an egg and then serve 2 ounces of some other protein like meat. Or 1 ounce of cheese is 1 protein serving, but then you'd need to add 2 servings of something else. If you look down the list here and you see beans, that is something that I know seniors are not necessarily crazy about, but it's a very good item to have in your menu. Not to say that they should have nothing but beans in their meal, but if they had a half a cup of cooked beans, that's only 1 part of the serving, then you can add 2 ounces of meat to it, and combined, that'll add up to 3 ounces of, or 3 servings of meat. I hope that's making sense. So you don't have to have all 3 servings of one item. You can break it up to some beans and some meat. The other choices, as you can see here, are peanut butter or nuts. Don't know if you serve nuts. or cottage cheese or tofu. But again, a very important source of nutrition. The fats and oils that you use, as I said earlier, it is better to use vegetable fats and oils, although this picture does seem to have a picture of, I believe it's margarine, but I'm not sure. Please check the label of everything you use to make sure you are not having hydrogenated trans fats or saturated fats. So some of the choices you have are margarine, mayonnaise, light salad dressing, light spreads, cream cheese, and one strip of bacon, which sounds like a big joke because which senior is going to be happy with one strip of bacon? But that's how much fat bacon has. So hopefully it's not part of your diet, of your menu very often. Now, the word fat makes us think, oh boy, we need to stay away from it. But that's not true. You do need a certain amount of fat in the diet because the vegetable oils especially are an important source of fatty acids, of essential fatty acids that are good for you. They also provide good calories. They add a lot to the taste of food, and they provide some important antioxidants like the omega-3s. Now, if you have some extra food groups that you did not use up, the best place to do it is in your desserts. So you could use fruit, dairy item, starch item to make a dessert and use it up that way. I realize that it's hard to allow for enough food groups to make a dessert, but quite often when I look at menus, I find that the person planning the menu has not used up all their fruit and fruit servings or all their starch, or for that matter, their dairy. So those things can be used to create dessert. And then if you have anything left, if you have beverages left, you can provide of course, fluids like water, which is very important, but you can also provide 100% fruit juice, although I would limit that amount a little bit. Coffee, tea is also fine. Non-nutritive beverages don't need any nutritional requirements, and by that I even mean water, but they do help with hydration. And of course, I'm sure nobody provides alcoholic beverages with your meals. So I'm going to stop here for a couple of more questions for you.
Minky, are you able to see the poll?
Yes, thank you.
Okay.
Shall I continue?
Yep, go ahead.
Okay, in the last few minutes that we have, because I don't want to use up all the time and allow time for questions, I just wanted to talk to you all about your menu planning process. And it's not that I'm questioning your process. I just like to know if you have somebody who does the menus and the meal planning, because they're two different things, and whether the people who are most familiar with what seniors like and eat are able to plan the menus and each meal. That makes a big difference. It would be nice to know if some of you are doing special meals. That's not required, but in some cases it would be nice. And by special meals, I don't just mean meals for diabetics, but people who have difficulty chewing. This may be, again, more an issue for your home-delivered meals. But texture does become a very big problem. And how well seniors are able to chew their food and swallow it makes a big difference. And whether you consider the opinions of the clients in your meals. Do you have any way of doing a client satisfaction survey? I have found that seniors are not shy about telling you if they like or don't like something. So whether that's something you take into consideration when you're planning your menus. And of course, cost is another big thing. So this is not something that I'm asking a question, but just things to think about. If one person does the menu planning, or do a number of you or those who are most involved with seniors also have input in the menu planning, keeping in mind all that we just talked about in terms of nutrition. And does the person who plans the menu also do the ordering and cooking? Because sometimes that helps with deciding how much you want to order. And some of the things to look for on the plate, because while we want to provide good nutrition, it has to be appealing to your clients. So the color of the food on the plate, sometimes, and I'm sure this doesn't happen in your sites, but I have seen meals where the main dish was baked chicken, mashed potatoes, and cauliflower, and everything looked about the same color. So you want to bring in color, and food has so many lovely colors in it. Garnish. It's nice to garnish if you can. You don't have to spend a lot of money on it. Whatever is helpful in the kitchen, things like half a slice of orange or a piece of parsley are commonly used, but you can have other things like a wedge of tomato or lemon or some other fruit even. Whether you make food from scratch versus using ready-made food, both are fine, and it depends on how much time you have in terms of food preparation. Of course, scratch food tastes good, but that is not to say in any way that something that you use that is made, ready-made, or a mix that you know is good can't be used. Cutting salt and fat and sugar from the recipes is very, very critical. I think you would all have found that cutting sugar is probably the easiest thing to do in most recipes. Cutting fat can also be done by substituting, for example, applesauce or mashed banana in a recipe, or just using skim milk instead of cream for a savory recipe that requires cream. Cutting salt is another important thing. It's a little harder to do if you've got something ready-made, but it can be done because salt is an acquired taste, and it's one that we have all become so used to that we just feel we can't do without it. And again, stressing fruits and vegetables. I know people get tired of me talking about fruits and vegetables, but they are such an important part of the nutrition for seniors. At the bottom of this screen, I have put information about a book, Food for 50, and I think some of you all already have it. It's a pretty expensive book, but it is available if you look on Amazon or other sites for a lower rate than $130. I think in one of the areas where I did a training, the area director bought a few of them and passed them around to the different programs because it has really good recipes, and it's been used for years and years with recipes for 50 people, which is a nice number to plan with. I know food cost is a big problem and concern with what you're doing in terms of menu planning, and there are a lot of issues that really you guys are the experts at in terms of how to cut food costs while still providing good nutrition for your seniors. One of the ways is to do substitutions if you don't have something on hand, rather than run to the store and buy it at a higher price. But when you do that and when you change something off the menu, it's important to record it in case there's ever a problem or question later on. And I'm sure I'm not telling you anything you don't already know, but checking your inventory before ordering is so important. And I don't know if all of you have one vendor or you buy from multiple vendors, But whenever possible, if you buy from the same vendor and you've got to know these people well, you're probably able to negotiate good prices from that person. And when you find certain things that are on special prices, that's the time to take advantage of it, even if it means doing a substitution on your menu. So there are some ways, and again, if I was talking to you one-on-one, you would give me very good ideas, but these are some of the things that I've heard from talking to people around the state on how to cut costs and at the same time provide good nutrition for seniors. Some of the places that you could lose money if it's not carefully managed is the ordering, delivery, and storage. And I know that in many of your sites, you may have one or at the most two people doing everything all at once, so it's not easy. But if food is not checked when it's delivered, that can be a problem because you may be paying for a certain amount and not quite getting it. Or if there's some kind of problem with the food that you receive, the quality is not there, and you accept it and not find out till later, then that is a problem. Storing food when it comes in, especially cold food and frozen food, doing it right away is very critical because food can spoil very easily, and you've all had your food safety training to know that food must be stored at the right temperature as soon as it's possible. Home-style cooking is a wonderful thing if you have recipes, standardized recipes that everybody uses. Sometimes I find that depending on who's cooking, the recipe could change. And that's not a good idea because you want to be consistent. The seniors expect a certain standard, and you want to be sure that all the portions of the ingredients are also consistent with the cost and the preparation time and the taste. So those are just some things to think about in terms of food cost. I asked you whether you serve plated meals or buffet style. I think a concern that I have, a couple of concerns I should say, with buffet style is that you don't have much control over the amount taken. And I know that's a hard thing to change because seniors like to serve themselves. But with the new food safety regulations, that is really not recommended because each one is going to handle the serving utensils. And also you need a very good salad bar style buffet system in order to serve food where other people are serving their own. So you have better control of portions and you have better control of sanitation if you serve to the seniors. And I realize that seniors don't like change, but for the food safety issue alone, that is better to do it with one staff person serving all meals. So I'm going to skip to the last slide because I want to allow time for questions. So I'm showing you now, there are going to be 3 more webinars, and the next one is going to focus primarily on nutrition of homebound seniors. And the reason for that is they are the ones at greater risk for poor nutrition and poor health. So we need to talk about them quite a bit. And it is my understanding that in Montana, there are as many or more meals served to homebound seniors than there are to the congregate meal sites. Now that number may have changed, but the last time I checked, that was the case. So I think it's important to talk about the quality and nutrition of homebound seniors as well as the delivery of food to homebound seniors. The third webinar is going to talk about the nutrition risk assessment for seniors. Now this is a form that all area directors have received and has to be used once a year for all the seniors in your program. And we will go through this forum not only because it's important to have seniors provide the information, but what you can do and how you can respond if there are areas of concern for seniors. And finally, one of the issues that has become very obvious in Montana is that there are a lot of seniors who are hungry. So we are going to talk a little bit more about how to increase access to food for seniors. You will hear about the dates as they are developed, but I believe one of them is already set for webinar 2. So I'm going to stop here and see if there are any questions in the chat box or if people want to verbally ask a question.
So Minky, I have shared the link to register for the second nutritional webinar in the chat box. So far, there are no questions pertaining to the presentation, but I'm going to go ahead and unmute everyone so they can talk to you live. One moment. Okay, everyone, just a warning, I'm unmuting you, so if you would like to remain mute, please press mute on your phone or on the WebEx control panel, and you can go ahead and ask any questions that you may have for Minky.
Yeah, she's muted.
So it looks like we do have a question in the chat box. It says, can starchy vegetables take the place of a grain?
Can you repeat that?
The question is, can starchy vegetables take the place of a grain?
Yes, and there are some starchy vegetables that do take the place of a grain or bread, and that is, of course, potatoes and sweet potatoes and squash, and also corn and peas. So yes, and that's a very good question, and they can, in the right amount, which is for corn and peas is usually half a cup of mashed potato or sweet potato. All of those are considered bread and grain groups. Right.
Does everyone see the link in the chat box for the register for the next webinar?
Yes.
Okay, wonderful. Okay, I have another question. Where does the meal pattern guide for senior nutrition programs come from?
Wow, another good question. So the USDA, the Department of Agriculture, sets the standards along with the Office of Aging on the nutrition needs of seniors. And the pattern has been based on making sure that seniors get 1/3 of their daily nutrition requirements. So what you saw in the meal pattern is 1/3 of their calories and nutrition for the day. I mean, theoretically, every senior should be getting about as much at breakfast and about as much as at dinner time. And so what you're seeing in that is providing 1/3 of their daily needs calories and all nutrition. Now, it also takes into consideration that a lot of seniors don't necessarily eat the right amount of food, at least for breakfast, and maybe even for dinner, depending on their home situation. So it's even more important that they get that 1/3 of their daily food requirement, which is based on the recommended dietary guidelines for seniors. The amounts are based on their energy level, energy needs. It's a little less for seniors than it is for people who are younger, just because the energy level being low. But again, it's the 1/3 of the daily nutritional requirements, and it provides, just so you know, between 550 and 700 calories, that one meal. If that's an average, and that's why there's a range, because every meal isn't going to be exactly the same calories.
So can the meal pattern guide be found online?
Well, it'll be in my slides that everybody gets, and I have sent these meal pattern guides to area directors in the past, and probably what I should do is send it again. I'm not sure of the exact location of where it can be found online, but I can look it up and send that information. But since anybody who wants the slides from today's webinar, if they want it, they will get a copy of that. And in addition to what you saw, and I couldn't go into a whole lot of detail, I have another more detailed information on each of the food groups and what could be included. I showed quite a few of them, but I didn't show all. So what I will do is send this again to all the area agency directors. And for those who are on the program, please be sure to check with your area directors and get a copy for yourself. I have passed them out in the past, but I have been revising them, so I'll send another copy again.
Any more questions? Okay, I don't see any in the chat box, so everyone, please be sure to register for the next webinar. It's on June 28th at 2 o'clock, and also be sure to take the survey at the end of the webinar. Thank you all so much for joining. Anything to add, Minky?
No, be sure to give your comments because I'm learning here, so any suggestions you have will be helpful. Thanks.
Wonderful. Thank you. Bye.